ولكن يناله التقوى منكم. So the wisdom behind offering sacrifice here, neither meat or neither their flesh reaches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it is by faith. And this is what the Prophet of Islam says in his universal speech. لا فرق بين عربي ولا على عجمي إلا بالتقوى. There's difference between people, no difference or no superiority of Arab over non-Arab except with by faith. And this is what the Quran confirms. إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ.
Indeed. Dr. Saeed, let me ask you
I
about...
just would like to just, the last point here for Hajj. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the ayat al-Hajj, al-Hajj أشهر معلومات فمن فرض فيهن الحج فلا رفث ولا فسوق ولا جدال في الحج. And then at the end of that verse, وتزودوا فإن خير الزاد التقوى. So what I would like to say that this is the second lesson that all people must do and know that by faith is the main reason and the main wisdom behind what all people are doing in al-Hajj, to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Right. Dr. Saeed, let me ask you about the issue of sacrifice, the importance of sacrificing, the rules of sacrificing, and it is according to everyone's capacity or capability. How important is this, as it doesn't just have a religious meaning, but also has a social connotation and responsibility of the actual sacrifice?
So, by sacrificing, people and Muslims are reliving and commemorating what happened during the life of Abraham, our father. The Prophet Abraham, when he saw in his dream that he is offering and he is slaughtering his son Ismail, Abu al-Arab, alayhi salam. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked him to offer sacrifice instead of that. So Muslims in these days are reliving what happened during that time and are reliving what happened during the Prophet of Islam. And as for we have different levels of sacrifice, whether it's going to be goat or sheep or camel. And even if you cannot do it by yourself, you can share a camel with others. The point is not Islam ما جعل عليكم, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, ما جعل عليكم في الدين من حرج. What I'm thinking about general rule here, that Islam based on easiness and removing hardship. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala لا يكلف نفسا إلا وسعها. So it's a kind of that you offer whatever you can do in order to feed people around the world. And that day, that it gives us the sense of sharing, the sense of solidarity among community. And I'd like to confirm a point here about sacrifice. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the Prophet of Islam, said a hadith in which it's really neat and deserves to be studied. إن الله كتب الإحسان على كل شيء. فإذا قتلتم فأحسنوا القتلة وإذا ذبحتم فأحسنوا الذبحة وليحد أحدكم شفته وليرح ذبيحته. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes him in the Quran, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ, that we have sent you as a mercy for all people.
Yes.
In that hadith, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam teaches his ummah how should he treat the animal that he offers sacrifice with. So let all people know that are talking about Muslims and Islam is the religion of violence. How about that hadith? That the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam teaches his ummah how should he treat the animal that he is going to offer as a sacrifice. That while you are slaughtering the animal as a sacrifice, you should take the merciful manner and the best manner.
Indeed.
You should sharpen your knife. You should make it very convenient. And this is how the Prophet Muhammad teaches his ummah to treat with animals. So what about treating with a human being, whether with other Muslims or others? And this is what the Islam and this is what the Quran, this is what I would like to confirm. وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. This is a general rule that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala
Indeed.
asked Muslims everywhere to treat all people, regardless of their religion, regardless of their race, regardless of their nationality, as all people before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as one.
Indeed.
And this is a very important lesson that we have to take it from the hadiths and from
Absolutely. Dr. Yes. Yes, indeed. Dr. Saeed, also there are certain rules related to charity after the slaughter of the animal or the sacrificing of the animal, a certain way to distribute a very charitable event in itself. Could you clarify this practice as well, please?
Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, once he sacrificed a goat. And Aisha, the wife of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, she distributed all of it, all of the goat meat, and except the head of the goat, the sheep. So when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam came back, and she told him that we have distributed all of it except the head or the goat. So he said that بقيت كلها وذهب رأسها. So what the Prophet Muhammad would like to say that what we are doing and sacrificing animals, this is to feed the poor people and to share the sense of sharing, the sense of solidarity among the people who are starving and the people who are suffering hunger, not only for a day. Some people around the world, they are suffering and starving for the whole year. So it's kind of that we are, tashkurullah, we are grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are offering sacrifices, وَتَكَبِّرُ ala ma hadakum, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. It's a kind of showing, being grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of His blessing, particularly in these days in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the verse, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي وَرَضِيتُ لَكُمُ الْإِسْلَامَ دِينًا. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed upon the Prophet Muhammad after his farewell speech. Today, I have perfected religion for you, and I completed my blessings upon you. I have been choosing Islam as a religion for you. So it's kind of that we are showing that being grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As for the distribution, we are distributing the goat, the meat of the goat, as like 3/3. After the Prophet Muhammad teaches us how should we treat the animal, the Prophet even teaches us how should we distribute our udhiyah. That we have to leave the third of it for the family and for the house.
Yes.
And another third for it is for relatives, people. And it's a kind of silat al-rahim that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always make a link between worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and visiting relatives and be good to relatives. وَعَبُدُ اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Always Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran make a link between silat al-rahim and worshipping Him alone.
Yes.
And the third is for poor people. It's for poor Muslims and even non-Muslims. Kind of solidarity, kind of sharing.
Yes, indeed, a very charitable task indeed for all Muslims. I'd like to thank you very, very much, Dr. Saeed Kishk, the Islamic researcher. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us this afternoon and for your insight. Ladies and gentlemen, a short break where we bring you our report for today, and we'll be right back to continue this edition of Arab Affairs. Do stay tuned.
Muslims all over the world celebrate Eid al-Adha, or the Feast of Sacrifice, that started on Friday and ends on Monday amid socially distant precautions to stem the coronavirus pandemic. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi exchanged greeting cables with the leaders, kings and presidents of the Arab and Islamic countries on the occasion of the feast. President el-Sisi expressed sincere congratulations for the leaders and their peoples on the holy occasion, wishing them prosperity and progress. The president also congratulated Egyptians inside the country and abroad and wished them blessings, happiness and health on Eid al-Adha. In Saudi Arabia, pilgrims continue on Saturday the symbolic stoning of the devil in Mina after making their way down from Mount Arafat on Thursday and spending the night in the holy site of Muzdalifah to collect the pebble. This year, each pilgrim received sanitized pebbles in advance of the event on Friday, the first day of Eid al-Adha, or the Feast of Sacrifice. With joy and tears, pilgrims spend the day on Mount Arafat, the climax of this year's Hajj, where the Prophet Muhammad gave his last sermon. A tight security cordon has been created all around the rocky hill outside Mecca. Pilgrims had underwent temperature checkups before attending a sermon in the local Namira Mosque. The scene was strikingly different to last year's ritual when a sea of pilgrims ascended Mount Arafat. Only up to 10,000 people already residing in Saudi Arabia are participating in this year's ritual, compared with 2019's gathering of some 2.5 million from around the world. Saudi healthcare and security professionals on the front lines of the battle against the disease make up about 30% of the total, with the remainder coming from 160 nationalities residing in the kingdom. Mosque-wearing pilgrims circle the Kaaba, a stone structure that is the most sacred in Islam and the direction which Muslims face to pray, in small groups of 50 people each, keeping a safe distance apart and accompanied by a health professional monitoring their movements. Unlike past years when they lunged toward the Kaaba, pilgrims are not allowed to touch the plain stone cube building covered in black cloth and wrapped in Arabic writing in golden silk. Pilgrims took several medical tests and were asked to quarantine for a week before starting their journey, then isolate for another week in their hotel rooms. They were given an electric bracelet to monitor their movements and a suitcase containing all basic necessities.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're now delighted to be joined over the telephone by Mr. Ramzi Khouri, the journalist, joining us from Jordan. Mr. Ramzi, it's a very good afternoon to you, sir.
My pleasure to be with you. Happy Eid to you and to all of the listeners.
Likewise, Mr. Ramzi, to you and your loved ones. Let's talk about, of course, Eid al-Adha, or the Greater Bayram. And, of course, it is not only celebrated by Muslims in Egypt, but Muslims all over the world. And I'd like to ask you about the main visuals of celebration across the Arab nations, if you can enlighten us.
Well, here in Jordan, where I am right now, everybody is just having Eid very similar to the pre-coronavirus era Eid, because Jordan has managed to control the spread of the virus in a very big way. So basically, the government opened up the country, and people are just having a blast, if you like. Obviously, there are concerns that the activities of the Eid may also bring back corona or help spread corona a bit faster. However, this is not expected only because of the major closures. Jordan is one of the countries that has not yet opened its borders to tourists. Only to Jordanian nationals, and these nationals are all forced into quarantine. And therefore, if they were carrying corona, by the time they're out of quarantine, they would be clean. And so there is major control here in Jordan. But this is not what's happening in the West Bank, unfortunately, not in Palestine, and also not in Lebanon. In Palestine, what is going on is a spread of the disease. There are a few hundred cases on a daily basis. This has forced the Palestine National Authority to take drastic measures over the Eid. whereas they allowed all of the shops to be open until midnight,
Yes.
just before the Eid, to allow people to shop, because especially on Eid, people actually exchange gifts and they buy foodstuffs, and so they allowed them to do that, but they implemented a full closure from Friday until the morning of Sunday.
Yes.
So this Eid is going to be a very unfortunate Eid for Palestinians due to the spread of coronavirus. They are not going to be allowed to conduct their regular and usual Eid activities. So that's what's going on in Palestine. In Lebanon, things went out of hand after Lebanon opened the airport on the 1st of July. A very large number of expats, tourists, travelers basically went down to Lebanon. The government was not able to manage the process very well. And as a result, they are also faced with a few hundred cases a day. And now they've also implemented a close down, not allowing people to celebrate Eid, to visit each other, to have the Eid lunch and dinner. So Jordan is very comfortable, if you like. Lebanon and Palestine are not over this Eid.
Indeed, it is unfortunate, of course, Mr. Ramzi, considering the coronavirus pandemic, which has really affected everything all around the world. Any social gathering, any festivities have been affected by this pandemic, and we hope that by next Eid, it would be over, or a vaccine will be out by then, allowing people to practice their rituals. Tell me a bit about an interesting issue you mentioned, the exchange of gifts. This is not very common in lots of Arab nations, but of course the family gatherings, etc. are. What are the differences, in your opinion, in the rituals and the traditions and practices of celebrating the Eid in different Arab nations?
Well, as you know, every country has a different culture,
yes,
and different norms. Now, what is common between them regarding gifts over the Eid? Children get gifts.
Yes,
either they get new clothes for the Eid,
or money,
which seems to be yes, or money, and these are really the gifts that are of importance, the gifts that go to the children during the Eid, and which make them feel festive
yes,
during the Eid. Very similar to what happens in Christmas, if you like.
yes,
and you're right. There isn't a culture of exchanging gifts amongst adults. However, having said that, an older father who has adult children, especially the girls, especially the daughters of that father, they will get a Eid gift of cash in Jordan and in Palestine, for sure. This is also a norm. So the dad would, and sometimes the dad and the brothers get together, and they put together a certain sum of money that is distributed to the daughters and sisters, as a gesture of a Saeed's gesture, and that is also part of the culture in Jordan and in Palestine.
Right, and the prayers also held in the early hours of the morning, followed by the ritual sacrificing. Is that mainly the general practice?
Absolutely. The prayers are always packed for the Eid. In Jordan, prayers were allowed, and therefore the mosques were all packed all throughout the country. In Palestine and in Lebanon, they put restrictions on mass prayers. So that was not basically up to par with the norms. So countries that are suffering from the spread of the virus
Yes.
have taken measures that have also affected mosques.
Yes, indeed.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, indeed. But I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank you very, very much, Mr. Ramzi Al-Khouri, the journalist. Thank you for joining us and for your insight on today's edition of Arab Affairs. This wraps up our episode. You were in the company of myself, Angie Meher. Many thanks for watching.